All right, so just firing up by the look of it. All righty, guys. We are live. And yeah, so the tech is working. That's my big win for today. Getting this set up through there's new updates to Facebook groups which kind of prevent streaming, and there's been some updates. So hopefully this is working, man. But good to have you. Welcome, Nick.
Hello, good to be here.
Mate, I'm pumped to have you here. How's Tassie today, by the way?
It is cold, overcast. We've got the fire on, so I'm not in a singlet like you. I'm rugged up.
Tassie represents, so for those of you who do not know, I am a Tasmanian by heart, but a Gold Coaster, adopted Gold Coaster. So I'm always kind of reminiscent when I speak to Nick because he's down in Tassie, so he's in my home state. But I'm never usually that jealous because the weather is almost always when we speak, mate. The weather, it's either raining, it's grey. I
Yeah.
don't know if I've ever spoken to you and it's been sunny.
No, when people ask what's it like, I tell them we enjoy both days of summer. So it's that kind of sums it up.
And you're down south. You're sort of south of Hobart, right? The Huon, sort of in the Huon region.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've got a big, actually small by Tassie standards. Got a 13-acre hobby farm half an hour south of Hobart.
Nice, man. Nice. Yeah. Well, welcome, mate. Great to have you on. And for those people who are watching now, so just throw us a comment in the chat. Let us know you're watching. Just put live, just to let us know that you're watching live. I'm going to look between my camera and also looking at Nick as well. So looking at you guys now. So comment live if you're here right now. Make sure you throw something in the chat. And if you're watching the replay, just hit replay. Let me know that you're here. And also, whilst we're kind of chatting, it'd be great if you could throw in any takeaways or any insights that you're receiving. You know, the purpose of this conversation and all the conversations that we have with closers is to give you insights on what does it take to transition and what does it take to be successful in remote sales. And so we're going to be digging deep into that with Nick today. But Nick, I wanted to start, mate, just tell us the journey. Like right now, you're a part-time closer on an offer. You're making 6 figures a year, working 2 days a week, which, to be honest, mate, when I saw your comment the other day in our group, and I hadn't really ever thought of it that way. So I hadn't thought that you're working 2 days a week, you're earning 6 figures, and I thought I saw your comment when you were commenting just for people to go, hey, Chris is legit. I was like, that is pretty damn awesome, man.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's so how I ended up here, right? Is you and I connected, I think, from like a Seek job ad,
Yeah,
and
correct.
I hadn't looked for work in a decade and a half. So I had for a really long time, I had a massive business coaching program, and we were making over 7 figures, and it was killing it. And it was very event based. We'd have a group of people, and we'd like 2 to 4 times a year we'd travel to different locations around the world, pay for everything, put on these epic events, do mad adventures, and all kinds of crazy stuff. It was super fun. And then when COVID hit, we had to transition to 100% online, and it just lost the vibe, and that program died. So my major, super fun, really awesome income stream just vanished within 6 months, I suppose. We held on for a while, but it just wasn't the same. And I've been, pretty good at sales for a long time. Put a lot of time and effort into educating myself. So I thought I'll look for a closing job, and that's how I came across. I can't remember exactly what it was when I first started, but we connected, and you're like, oh, okay, Nick's legit. He knows what he's doing. We'll put him on this offer, and it's just kind of blown up from there. So that's like the 60-second
The
background.
synopsis. Yeah.
Yeah,
And I remember, when we connected, looking at your application, uh, what stood out was your experience with NLP. You've been I think a master prac NLP. You'd had a coaching business. And yeah, I do remember thinking, wow, this guy seems really qualified. But also the story of COVID taking hold, and then you've got an in-person business, an events-based business, which then overnight gets shut down. It's another. I mean, there's another. To be honest, there's another closer who I was training on the offer that you're on now. The first closer on this offer had the exact same situation. He was running an events business in I think it was a cruise event. So he was running events, quite a big business. That got shut down overnight. Cruises, boats stopped operating, and things got shut down overnight. So he then jumped into remote sales as well. So pretty interesting that you both jumped on the same offer and you came from the same background. All right, so let's chat then about I guess now you're on this offer. I know you've got family, so a lot of the guys that we work with and the people who are sort of looking to get into remote sales, a big driver for them is spending more time with family. I think sales in general has a perception that it's really hardcore. You've got to be kind of on every second of the day. So yeah, maybe just share sort of what does life look like now? What are you sort of working on? How do you fit family in?
Man, I'm the most productive lazy person you'll ever meet in your life, I think. So on the NLP point, I'm actually an NLP trainer, right? So that was a big part of my events business, and it really factors in a lot to what I do when I'm on sales calls. And with my family, I've got a wife. She's got a bunch of medical problems. You wouldn't know it if you met her, but she's got stuff she's dealing with. So I need to be at home to be able to step in at any moment if she's not good. We've got two kids. We've got a 10-year-old son, and our daughter just turned 14 like 2 weeks ago. So,
Nice.
one's in high school, one's about to be in high school. I want to spend a lot of time with them. They're nowhere near ready to move out, but I can see that kind of deadline approaching. They both want to go to uni, and they're half French, so they want to travel the world, and which costs a lot of money. Got to make a lot of sales, right?
It does, yeah.
And
we're heading to France this year, actually, so I might have to get some tips from. So your wife, she's French, is she?
Yeah, she's French.
Got it.
So yeah, hit me up when you're over there. I know we'll sort you out. So I want to be able to spend a lot of time with my kids while they're young, and I also do a lot of martial arts training, and that's my big passion. There's a sword on the wall there. I'm pretty obsessed with martial arts. Have been forever. And for me, I want to work the smallest amount of time possible to make the largest amount of money, and then not think about it and enjoy time with my family and doing the stuff that I want to do. And the only thing that I've ever found that provides that is high ticket closing, because I get the idea that it takes so much time and effort, you've got to be on, but I don't ascribe to that at all. Like, I don't have, you probably know this, you've called me on the phone, right? I don't have voicemail. I don't take voicemail.
Your phone doesn't work, Matt. Your phone actually doesn't work. So you're probably the only high ticket closer I've known that actually doesn't have a phone that works, because the reception down in Tasmania is so terrible that there's no phone reception. So that's impressive in itself.
I do all my sales via carrier pigeon and smoke signals. So you do it.
Snail mail.
Yeah, exactly. So the phone works okay now, which is good, but it didn't when I first started. I had to get in the car and drive 15 minutes down the road to a local cafe and just work from the cafe. So that was, do what you got to do. But now we've got Starlink internet, so that's great. You can do that anywhere. The phone works through the internet, so that really helps. And coming back to that point of like spending all your time on sales calls or with the surrounding activities, there's all kinds of stuff you can do to automate those components so you can free up a lot of time. Like, anytime I find myself doing the same task over and over again, if it takes more than half an hour, I'll just build a system to automate that. Like, I don't do any prep. With this offer that I'm on now, I was spending 2 to 3 hours on a Sunday night setting myself up for the calls for the week. And now I just use a system similar to Zapier and automate everything. It sends the pre-call emails, SMSs, all that kind of stuff. And I just sit back and chill and then show up and do the calls. And everyone's kind of pre-sold before they get there. So
Got it.
it doesn't have to take a lot of time.
Yeah, yeah. You're one of the most techie people I know, and I think the effortlessness that you have with, well, it's effortless once you set up the systems. To pre-Suede and then to post-sell, the follow-up, all of that is systemized with your process. Now, if we just chat, like, I guess, go back to sort of moving from business then into the role of high-ticket sales, how did you find that change from running a business? You had, I believe you had a bit of a team, you had events you were managing, you were marketing, getting leads, you're delivering the service, obviously you were selling. So how did you find the switch from business to then moving into sales where you focused on just one key element of the business?
It was overall, it was pretty easy. The hardest part for me, I don't think you and I have ever really spoken about this either, but the hardest part for me was the getting over the psychological um, hump, I suppose, of I'm not just doing my own thing anymore. Because even though I'm still running my own business, I contract as a salesperson. I'm not an employee. It's still technically my business and I'm providing a high level service. I am still showing up on someone else's time frame to appointments that I'm not in control of. I'm not qualifying those people beforehand. I'm just going to show up and get the result. So it's a different kind of pressure. And I hadn't been on someone else's schedule for 20 years. So that was actually the hardest part for me. There's no issues of like, oh, I can't have a job, that's no good. I just wasn't used to showing up on someone else's schedule. The other hard thing really was, and this is the only thing I still struggle with is having enough time available, because these guys want me full time, like 10 hours a day, 9 days a week if possible,
For
right?
sure.
Because my conversion rates are sky high. So but I can only really afford 2 days a week because of the other things I've got going on and what I'm doing with my family. So those were the big things, and that's pretty much sorted now because I'm a year and a bit, year and 1 month actually.
Cool.
But yeah, that was a bit of a
That's
challenge.
awesome.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So, and then the offer that you're on, it's a property-based offer. It's for investment property clients, and we're selling. It's between $15,000 and $20,000 ticket. The
Now
leads.
it's up to about 27,000. So
That's
it's kind of
wild.
16 to 27,000.
That
Yeah.
is wild. It's probably a lot due to the load that you're putting onto the delivery team, because the more in this agency world, when you've got an agency, not only you sell it and then you got to deliver it, so everyone you sell sort of creates a lot of work for the business.
Yes.
And then you either have to sort of turn the tap off or you increase the price. But that's that's crazy. Mate, when we started, so yeah, just sort of how it all came about. The company's a client of mine. I was working on the account. We needed to hire a closer to hop on and sort of run some calls. So you and I connected with you. You'd never sold property before, and it was, and you weren't by no means you were by no means a property expert. I mean, I think you purchased property, but you are not the world's leading authority on property. And so I'm interested because at the start it was a little bit rocky. We sort of started off, and things took a bit of time to sort of take shape. And it was a bit of work at the start. It was sort of refining. There was the conversion wasn't where it needed to be. We kind of had to refine a few things. There was product knowledge that needed to be sort of gained. There was a bit of confidence there. Man, like, let's go back to that. I mean, because what happened, ultimately, it felt like we were scraping through, and it was almost like, maybe not going to work. And then just we kept, on by, held on sort of by our fingernails. And then we sort of moved now, and now you're closing at 80%. You're the by far the highest performing closer on the team in terms of a conversion rate. You're
80,
making, what's that?
82%.
80. I've ripped you off 2%, and
Yeah, don't do that.
that 2% adds up over a 12-month period.
Absolutely.
That was over a year ago now. So what was the process that went on there? I don't even think we've really unpacked it. It just sort of happened. We worked really hard. We changed a few things with scripting, bit of training and call reviews, and then kind of we moved. It just transformed things.
Yeah, it's there's a whole stack of things that went into that. You and I, we've had like a small kind of text back and forth one time about this, I think maybe 9 months ago. So I've read a book or two on property investing in my life, right? And that's it. And I bought a house, sold a house, bought another house. I'm like, and residential, principal residence. In terms of selling an investment service, I'd never done that before. I'd only sold high ticket coaching. So I knew I could close at a high price point, but I didn't know the ins and outs of the offer, and I didn't know I didn't know what objections were going to come up. I was okay at objection handling. I prefer what I call pre-elimination, which is figure out what the objections are and then use some, kind of NLP mind voodoo to eliminate them before they ever get raised. And then you don't have to objection handle, right? And so when I was trying to simultaneously close deals, learn the offer, be able to answer people's questions in a completely new environment, and it was like there were a lot of different moving pieces that I had to get in the right order and sequence really quickly, and the conversion rate wasn't there. So, the guys were saying, we need to get this up or it's probably not going to work. You and I would spend a reasonable amount of time with you coaching me on what to do and listening to calls, and I'd be recording them and that kind of stuff. And it really comes down, like, if you want to improve really quickly, the two things that you need are someone like you who has more experience, more product knowledge, knows what to do, and has the coaching skills to actually identify the problem. Because you'd pinpoint, like, here's the one thing we're going to focus on, and let's fix that, and then fix that for a couple of calls, and then we'd iterate on something else, right? You wouldn't give me like 19 things to fix and go have at it. And I found that really helpful. I don't think we've ever verbalized that before, but I found you've got a very focused, specific approach. Maybe that was just with me, but that was very effective. And then on the flip side, I could have been an absolute idiot going, man, I've got 20 years experience. Why I know exactly what I'm doing, and I'll do things my way. But my approach is always come into things humbly, and why would you not want to learn from someone who's clearly knowing exactly what they're doing and can help me make a lot more money in a very small amount of time, right? So I just want to soak in the knowledge. I took whatever you'd say and I would just implement it. My approach when being coached is always adopt before you adapt. So I've changed a lot of the stuff that we worked on through experience and trial and error over the last 9 months. But when you would give me a piece of advice, I would say that thing word for word. I would adopt it first, get it to the point where I knew it off by heart, or I'd implement it enough times to get some real life results, and then consider changing it. And where a lot of people screw up is they'll get some advice, they'll tell themselves they know better, and they'll do not what they were told to do, and then wonder why they're not getting results. So I reckon that's probably the biggest thing that got the results to go from not quite there to skyrocketing in a very short amount of time.
Yeah, I love that, man. Adopt before adapt. You really have to, in this game, I do think, if something's working, come in, learn it, even if it's changing whatever your style might be, sort of move into that first before then adding your own flavor and your flair. And I think all good salespeople, they add their flair, they add their flavor to it, but I think it can be a real mistake and a pitfall to come in to an offer and just that's working, that's being sold at a level, and then try to just change it or do something that's totally different to what's been working. And that's clearly a bit of a mistake. But man, yeah, like, I mean, it's pretty wild to think about that, and then where it got to, and it really just demonstrates that product knowledge is one thing, but what can hurt you as well. Too much product knowledge, too much showering information, too much teaching about whatever the product is or whatever you're selling is the opposite of selling. It's teaching, and I think being in sales, and you're an expert at sales, that we need to be stretching the gap and not teaching. And so teach when once they've purchased, but sell once before they've bought, and avoid too much teaching. I mean, a little bit of product knowledge is really helpful for confidence, and it's for understanding how to manage like little questions and objections when they pop up, and it takes a bit of time to get it. But yeah, certainly, mate, you've mastered it. And so I think it's an interesting thing now. Your sales process is a lot of it is completed prior to even hopping on the call. And I think that's an interesting thing. I mean, this goes back to you being the automation king, and the laziest salesperson, laziest high-performing salesperson out there. So talk us through your strategy. Talk us through how do you pre-sell, persuade to the point where I think you hop on. I think your first two questions are: did you read the PDF? Do you have any questions? What's stopping you from doing this on your own? Here's the price. Let's do it. I mean, that's probably an abbreviated version. There's probably a bit of rapport there, a bit of authority. But so talk us through this PDF strategy, because it's very, very interesting.
Let's start with a caveat saying it might not be the right move for everyone to just jump into this, right? Because if you haven't first tested the process over and over and over again by doing exactly what you say, which is just read the script, right? Because at first, I read the script, didn't have the product knowledge, went okay. Got more product knowledge and more training from you, results improved. Then we talked about adopt before you adapt. I started making some changes and the conversion rate dropped again, right? And then you and I had calls, and I like I said, got to be humble.
I remember listening to the calls. I'm like, man, this is that you're going away from the process. You're moving away, and so
I went back to the process. Conversion rate went right back up again, right? So then I stuck to it for months without changing anything, and then I'd start to split test. What can I change here? Tiny incremental changes to speed this up, make it less actual selling on the call. And I realized that there was very little pre-framing going on, or the company had pre-framing and it was working, but I felt I could do a better job myself. So I actually took the script that you provided, removed a lot of the conversational elements and the reveal of the price and all that kind of stuff, and I turned it into an informational PDF that I would send to people in advance, email them 2 days beforehand, and then SMS them saying, let me know when you've read this. And then they've basically read the entire sales script, it has all of the objection handling, an outline of the offer, all that kind of stuff. And by the time they arrived on the call, they were pretty much 80 to 90% pre-sold, to the point that in December last year, and this is uncommon, but I ended up closing 3 sales purely via SMS. I didn't even do a sales call.
What were the value of those sales? How much were they each, just on average?
They would. The way this company works is, I don't know that until the client has gone on and had their portfolio strategy session.
Right. So yeah, you take them up front. There's a commitment up front, and then yep.
But it's going to be
between 15,000 and 27 grand, basically, that they're committing
exactly.
to.
Yeah. So I tend to average it out at about $20,000. Like, I've done the average, and every sale is worth on average 20 grand. So let's just call it 20K, right? So for the company, that's $60,000 in 3 SMSs, which is insane. 3 SMS conversations, not 3 individuals. So I'd send the email, they're pre-sold, send the SMS saying, have you read this? I got a response 3 times. This was 3 back to back. I'm like, I'm just sending SMSs forever. No more sales calls, right? That didn't eventuate, but how good would that be? They sent me the message back saying, yes, I read it and I'm ready to go. And I learned the lesson, which is recognize someone's buying temperature, right? And if they're telling you that they are absolutely ready to go right now, you still want to trial close and confirm and all that kind of stuff. I did that, so absolutely no questions. You're certain. So here's the pricing. Here's this. Here's that. I can send you the agreement. And they're like, yes, send it through. I'll sign it right now. And that happened 3 times in a row, right? So that was fantastic. And I had a couple of others in that same month that were typically a call is 30 to 40 minutes. And I had a couple that were like 3 to 5 minutes from the same process. So that's when I realized this was really working well to pre-frame very heavily. I've taken that a step further now. I actually send a big, long, detailed email that includes the pricing, right? So I give them all of the information. And then when they show up to the call, again, I just ask them if they have any questions. I answer the specific questions they have. There's no objections. They know the price. They know the process. They're good to go. And my thought process is, if they show up with all of the information, if they had objections about the price, they'd probably just cancel the call, right? And that's been the experience a couple of times where no one's actually cancelled, but a couple of times people got on and they're like, yeah, I wasn't really sure. And then you just run a sales call. But 80% of the time, they show up and they're totally pre-sold. And it's working spectacularly well.
That's
Yeah.
And listen, I think we should sort of mention that these leads, they're warmer leads. They're not paid. It's not paid traffic. So we're dealing with probably a little bit more of I'd say middle of funnel audience. I mean, these calls, they can be quite cold, but in general, they're familiar with the company. They have somehow, but they've been following. They've consumed some content of the company. The founder is quite well known and well liked, so that always helps as well. But it might be different, and it is a different ball game when it's a kind of a Facebook, someone who just clicked a link and they've now sort of landed in a calendar, and that process may not work. So I just want to caveat that so that people don't run out there and start sort of trying that on cold traffic, because you might get
Yeah, I don't think that'd work to cold traffic at all. These people are. So my pre-sell is pre-selling them on the process specifically and the details of the offer. And I do some price handling and objection handling in that email before they show up to the call. But in terms of their pre-sell for the company and the founder and the concept, they are like warm to hot.
Very warm.
Right?
Very warm.
They're not cold at all by the time they arrive on this call. So yes, the caveat is super important. It's specific to this offer. I wouldn't necessarily do that under all circumstances.
But like you say, you've adapted or adopted first, and now you've adapted to the offer. And I think this is really critical for any salesperson, because not everything, every sale that we make or every product that we're selling is going to be different and nuanced in some way. And you found a way that makes life so much easier for you. And how crazy would it be if this is working at such a level? How crazy would it be to run a 1 hour, 60-minute phone call with these guys if you can get them 80% sold through your persuasion? I call it persuasion. So getting someone persuaded prior to getting on the call. Yeah, it's a wild strategy. So, mate, I wanted to then hop into just a couple of questions. Like, we've got some guys on the stream. I can see a few people. Jacob, mate, welcome. Bob, Dwayne. I'm just going to remove my thing here. James, Ali. Awesome to have you guys on. And so, yeah, just in the group, we do have, we've got guys at various levels of their career, some who have been in sales for a long time. Hey, Terry, good to see you, mate. Some guys who have been in the industry for a while, who are looking to elevate. others who are looking to break in and get their foot in the door into some sort of a remote role. So there's a couple of sort of questions that I wanted to run through that are going to help and have some insight. So, mate, bit of a rapid fire. But what is your most memorable sale? The most memorable sale that you've made because potentially you had to go war and peace with objection handling. Maybe it was like a 10-year nurture cycle that eventually came through. Like, what's been the most crazy sale that you've made?
There's two. The first one is the first sale that I made via SMS, like we were talking about before. That was insane. And I'm talking about on this property
$20,000 product, service, through SMS.
Yeah, SMS. Now, I've done that before in my own company when I decided to launch a web. I'll build your website and your funnel offer and stuff like that. It was $33,000. I sold that via SMS as well, right? So, but that was with an existing client who was kind of very warm himself, and that was great. But in terms of this property offer, that first SMS sale was a bit of a mind-blowing moment for me where I couldn't believe that happened. And then it happened 2 more times on the same day, which is nuts.
That's great.
The other one, so you know the boss in this company really well, right? And he laughs at me all the time because I don't 100% know how the other guys handle their follow-up. Mine's very systematic and strategic, and I operate follow-up with 2 principles. I like it's be relentless, but be friendly, right? Because if you're relentless without being friendly, you're a pain in the ass. If you're friendly, but you're not relentless, well, then that's a waste of everybody's time, right? I'm not trying to be their mate, but I just want to be. I will follow up. This comes back to an old Dan Kennedy concept, right? Follow people up until they buy or they die. That kind of makes sense.
That's great.
Bit of an abrupt way to put it, but it makes sense.
I love it.
I had a 9 or a 10-month follow-up process with one client, and that was 2 or 3 calls over that period, a bunch of emails, a bunch of SMSs. He said he wasn't going to do it a few times, came back and said he was, and eventually signed on. And then I was talking to the guy who runs the company, and he's like, "Mate, I can't believe you managed to close this guy. This is like such a long burn to get to that point." And so for me, I personally, there's all kinds of awesome stats on this stuff, right? Like you shared some earlier on your Facebook profile about the number of times people follow up and skipping leg day and all those kind of things. It's like if people don't buy within the first 3 months, the next time period is from that 3 months to 2 years. And so I just accept that. I will follow up people literally until they buy or they die. So it's those are the 2 big ones.
That's fantastic. That's such good advice as well. Such good advice. I did put a post up yesterday which explained that majority of sales are made after after the first call, and across industry, across salespeople, like the majority. If you look at the stats, the majority of sales come through after that first call. Many touch points later, but there's a crazy amount of salespeople. Like there's a high percentage of salespeople that don't follow up after the first call, and the guys who do mostly only follow up once or twice. And so, and often that's because you're busy, but you're too busy to make money in general. And so how can you systemize your follow-up? So like Nick has, systemize your follow-up, because you have to be relentless, but also I agree, man, you have to be friendly. You have to be coming from a place of value, offering value, not from, I call it non-needy nurture, so not being needy and sort of saying, hey, you're ready to buy, is now the time, so you're going to get really annoying. So friendly, not annoying, and also relentless. And Jeff Jowett, one of my mentors, he calls it top of mind, not a pest. And I call that the Tom Knapp sequence. So being top of mind, but not a pest. So staying top of mind, because in this game, investment property, people are going to buy property at some point. They're buying, and it's only a matter of time when. So, mate, I love that. What is? I'm gonna pick a couple here because I've got a few. What is one thing, we've already talked about one thing that's working. One of my questions was one thing that's working. I think the PDF is one of the things that's really working. It's a bit of a unusual. So what's the toughest objection that you get, and then how do you handle that on a call?
The toughest objection.
Or
I don't really.
maybe the most common objection that comes up. What's the most common objection? How do you handle it?
I mean, the two most common issues are always price and partner, right? Like the value's there, so there's no questions about the value. It really comes down to people wanting to negotiate on the price. Luckily for me, I don't have to make these decisions. There's a straight up no negotiations policy. So my approach to that is I just laugh. This is the friendly thing. Like when people, so is the price negotiable? I'll literally just laugh down the phone in a friendly manner. I'm like, I respect that you got the guts to ask, but it's a solid no, right? So if that's a deal breaker for you, you're welcome to jump off the phone. And like, oh, no. So it's a bit of that takeaway, be prepared to walk away.
That's powerful.
Yeah?
That's powerful. The powerful part about that is it coming from a place of abundance. You are abundant. The business is abundant. They're abundant. They have so much business coming through, partly because of your conversions and the sales you're bringing in, but they've got a lot of business coming through. They've got a lot of interest. So when you can come from a place of, abundance when you're negotiating, and I think you always have to come from a place of abundance when negotiating, regardless of whether you have abundance or not. You have to be abundant, and if you're scarce, if you've got an empty calendar or there's no clients, what can happen is that scarcity can bleed through. But man, two parts to that for me is the laughing, because it's actually quite laughable that someone would try to negotiate if they knew what the business was doing, how many clients they're servicing, how much pipe was in the pipeline. They would sort of feel a bit silly, I think, to try to negotiate. And then also the fact that you've said, if that's a deal breaker, I'm happy to hop off the call. That's such a high status response, and it conveys such certainty that it's very magnetic. It's being the lighthouse, not the tugboat. You're not pushing people. You don't mind. Hey man, I'm just the lighthouse. I'm here. I'm just letting you know how it is, and this is what we do. We've got a lot of clients in our on our books, and if that's a deal breaker for you, it's a bit of a shame, but I totally understand. And you're coming from that total leadership place.
Yeah, absolutely. The other ones that come up. First of all, I've actually never had someone get off the phone when I've said that as well, and they'll often convert. They just want to ask. People, there's a certain type of person out there, and I'm like this too. I'll just ask for a discount, because if you don't ask, you don't get it. And 8 out of 10 times, people are happy to negotiate on the price. Like, how much is this coffee cup worth? Right? It's that old Jordan Belfort sell me this pen thing, right? It's all funny, but how much is this? This could be a $2 coffee cup. This could be a $200 artisanal, handmade in Japan thing, and is it worth $5? Is it worth $5,000? Right? The answer is yes. Yeah, it's like price is imaginary. So if you don't ask for a discount, you're never going to get one. I ask for everything all the time for a discount. However, I'm not empowered to give discounts on this offer, and I wouldn't anyway. So it empowers me to just laugh at that question. Another one, so the partner one is really interesting.
Just what I'll say is it can be powerful to not have negotiation, not actually have that in your mind. Now, I've been on many offers where it is like, let's just get them in. We just need to get a deal done here. So as a salesperson, there's never a deal that's done. Or there's always something to go back to them with. There's always a re-offer to go back to them with, and it can be quite scrambling of your brain. You're so scattered because you've got all these people who weren't signing up, and now you got to go back to them, and now you're in negotiations. And so I think it is a powerful place to be, just a strict no negotiation policy. I think you will lose deals, but I think you'll win more than you lose.
You'll lose the pain in the ass deals.
Correct.
You know what I mean? Like those people are going to be the problem clients, and it's worth the cost of them not signing on is like making a payment for your own peace and sanity because you're not dealing with dickheads. Yeah. And so the other big objection, I don't know if I really consider this an objection anymore, but it's when someone shows up and their partner isn't there. Now, we pre-frame, we set it up, partner needs to be there. But the reality is I'm doing these calls. If I'm doing a call at 11 a.m. on a Tuesday, one partner's there, the other one's at work, right? So factoring that into the follow-up is very important. So I make sure that as far as possible, this is where that pre-framing email comes in because now both partners can read it beforehand. And I ask them, if your partner's not going to be there, make sure they've read this and they've signed off that you can make this decision for the two of you. And then that's persuasion, that's pre-eliminating that objection. And if they tell me, if that hasn't been verbalized and they tell me on the call that they need to speak to their partner, I just agree with them. I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't expect you to do this without speaking to your partner. You're about to invest $500,000 in an investment property. If you weren't going to talk to your partner, I'd be questioning, your sanity and how strong your marriage is. And I'll just turn it into a joke, right? Go for it, talk to your partner, but then I'll give them a deadline. You need to get back to me within, 48 hours because we've got X hundred other people who want to get in on this. And if you don't get back to me, you're going to have to go back to the front of the line. So I release the pressure saying, yeah, talk to your partner. I don't try an objection handle. But then I solve that by taking the control back and going, but you've only got 48 hours or 24 hours, and then I'm going to kick you back to the end of the queue, right? And that works really, really well.
I think it's also good to have, that's a real situation, I think, in this offer as well. Like, it's not just a fake scarcity, which, often happens on offers. There's a fake scarcity. Hey, we've only got 2 spots available, so I can hold that for you for the next 24 hours. I mean, that can be fake. But in your world, in this agency world, it's legit. At the end of the day, if they don't come on, then they're going to go back to the end of the line, and that's not where you want to be in this, especially in this market. So yeah, that's really powerful, man. And I think you're just the mind voodoo of just trying. The whole process is about building belief and eliminating objections so that we get to the end and we don't have an objection. So they're not unusual to come up, but often it comes just from that place of like a little bit of fear, a little bit of butt clenching now that we're sort of having to part with some cash, but then they're often not legit. And I think just handling them masterfully and just confidently, that's the best way to go about them. What is your best career advice for people who are looking to, break in or do really well in this space?
Treat it like it's your own business, right? Like run it like a business. You've got to be very organized. You have to be okay with like shitty days. Sometimes you don't close anything for a week and that sucks, and the pressure's on and the people at the top are saying what happened, and sometimes like you got to justify it in some way. And sometimes it's that every person was unqualified when you get on the call, right? So you've got to have the emotional resilience to handle that and just to be okay and say the leads were terrible this week, but I'll do better next week, right? So managing your own and other people's expectations, treating it like a business, having a schedule, scheduling your follow-up. I saw you put that in your post as well, right? And I read it and I'm like, yeah, it's you just get it, right? Obviously. And so
it's got to go on the calendar. Anything that's not urgent but important has to go in the calendar. Otherwise, it doesn't get done. And if we don't follow up, the owner's not going to be tapping you on the shoulder straight there and then, because they're not going to know. But they'll know at the end of the month when the numbers aren't there, and they'll know when they look at your pipeline and it's looking quite heavy.
I'd also say use the right tools for you intelligently. So I have, I don't actually remember the name of this system, but it's a Zapier alternative, right? And so I've got it set up that when an appointment comes into my Google Calendar, it automatically puts them in the right things in the CRM and sends them my pre-framing email 2 days before their appointment and an SMS. And so that's like, that cost me, I think, 7 cents to do that. So I'm happy to spend my own money on that so that I don't have to do it manually, which is great.
It's a tax deduction as well.
Exactly. And then I show up, I know they're pre-framed, I do the call, and afterwards I complete my tracking and notes like instantly, so I don't have hours of follow-up to do or data entry to do. I just go bang, 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 smash that out, send whatever I said I was going to send, and then jump on the next call. And if there's follow-up required, I'll schedule that immediately. So my big thing is I don't want to have to think about this when I'm playing Lego with my son or if I'm rolling in jiu-jitsu class. I don't want any thoughts in my head going, got to remember to follow up Fred, right? Or whatever. It's just all in the calendar. It's all handled. Every email's been sent or is scheduled to send. Everything is just done. So when I hang up the phone on the last call of the day, I just turn the laptop off. I'm like, everything's done. I don't have to think about this now. Yeah. And that's probably the biggest thing is get it out of your head and into a system. If you do that, then it's easy, it's fun, you make a lot of money, and you're not spending all of your off time thinking about work.
It's I think that's one of the most crucial pieces of advice that any salesperson could have. It's not, even if you're not a contractor, even if you're an employee, we need to treat the role like it's our own business. If you treated that role like it's your own business, if you treated every lead like it was your lead, if you paid for that lead, it's likely that the lead just to enter the CRM might have cost $50 to get that lead into the CRM, and then to get onto a qualifying call, it might have cost $300, and then to be on a sales call, we're looking at $500, in some cases up to $1,000, depending if there is marketing spend there, just to be there on the call. And the approach that you've got, which is very systematic, it's treating everything like it's a business, because businesses that even though you need to show up to the call to sell, unless you're sending the text, which would be nice if that happened every time, but you still need to show up. So we're still swapping a bit of time for money, but the more you can systemize, the more you can eliminate in terms of time and thinking, the better your business is going to be, the better your life is going to be, the more time you can spend with your kids. And mate, I think it's, you've got it dialed. You've got what I think a lot of people would say is a dream scenario. You're working 2 days a week. Most of the stuff's systemized. You're probably taking 20-minute phone calls to make, good money, 6 figures a year. And the rest of your time, you're sort of working on other things and spending time with your family. So it's, mate, it's really inspiring. I'm sure a lot of guys are going to aspire to it and take a lot from today's session.
That's awesome.
What's there's one question here from Terry who's in the chat. He said, what's the best piece of advice you guys would give to someone learning the skill of setting or closing? What are your thoughts on that, mate?
Repetitions. Get the reps in. What else is there? You don't get good at something by thinking about it. You get good at something by putting it into practice. Be okay with sucking, but suck for a short amount of time and suck. You want to compress the suck, right? Suck for the shortest amount of time possible by getting as many reps in as you can, and then you'll improve. And also be open and humble to getting the advice and feedback that's going to let you level up.
I think compress the suck is it's a tagline. I'll go one step further. I'll say that perfect practice makes perfect. Perfect reps make perfect. I use a lot of golf analogies, and so until I actually got a golf coach, I really sucked. And no amount of me going out and playing golf helped my suckness. So the compression of suck just wasn't there. It was very uncompressed, and the suck got worse because I was practicing bad technique, and of course then that has a mental impact. And it wasn't until I got a golf coach, and I spent 12 months working with a golf coach in Noosa, and I'm happy to report I'm not as sucky now. And when I practice, I'm practicing with a framework. I'm practicing with a technique. And so what my coach, Jimmy, would say is that, I now have a swing. I've built a swing. We've constructed a swing. And so one of the mistakes you can make in golf is just to go to the range and just hit balls mindlessly. And you're just ingraining poor technique. And the same will happen on sales. In sales. Sales is very similar to sport. It's technique. It's an approach. There's skills involved. There's strategies involved. And if you don't have the right skill set, if you don't have the right training, if you're not sort of practicing the right way, it's like you're going to the range and just punching balls mindlessly for hours, and you're only going to get worse, and you're not going to know why. You're going to be struggling, scratching your head, going, "Why can I not hit a fairway? Why can I not close a deal?" So I'd say get a good coach, get a good mentor, get a good framework, get around some other people, get people to review your calls, get into a little group and start sort of working with other people who are working on each other's skill set. So yeah, perfect practice makes perfect, but also practice the reps. Mate, it's been an absolute pleasure. We've gone for 50 minutes, so it feels like a lot less than that, man, and super insightful for me. I'd love to know. Thanks, Ali. Thanks for your feedback. It has been a great session. I feel like it's been a really valuable session, not only for people watching, but also for me. I always learn. I think there's a few things for me around systemizing follow-up, systemizing pipeline, getting a bit more involved in the automation to manage efficiencies. Definitely for me. And I'd love to know, guys, what's been your biggest takeaway? I'd really love to understand. So drop a comment below the chat. Let us know what's been your biggest takeaway. What's one thing you're going to implement moving forward, having listened to Nick's advice and Nick's story, which is an incredible story? What's something that you're going to take home from that, Nick? Mate, any parting thoughts? Anything else you want to finish off with?
I'd probably be a bit remiss if I didn't mention mindset, right? So, I wrote a book called 7 Minute Mindset based on my approach to NLP training. That was a decade ago. You can have, there's kind of, I draw a triangle when I'm running training for people, and it's essentially you need the skills, right? The sales skills, you need the product knowledge, and then you need the right mindset. And those are three sides of a triangle. If you actually built a physical triangle and you took one side away, the whole thing would collapse. It doesn't matter which side you take away. Take the bottom away, it's going to flatten out. You take the side away, it's going to collapse like this, right? So we've talked a lot about skills and processes and automation, and that all falls under skills. Product knowledge is vital. If you don't know what you're talking about, you're not going to sell it. But the missing component for a lot of people is mindset. How do you motivate yourself? How do you stay disciplined? How do you handle rejection? How do you bounce back with resilience? How do you handle and eliminate your fears? What do you do when you have a terrible month and you're not making any sales, right? That's all that stuff's mindset. So wherever and whatever you do, for some people it's prayer, for some it's meditation, for some it's personal development books, for some it's Tony Robbins, right? Just find some way to work on your own psychology so you can handle the pressure and still find ways to enjoy the process and get that third side of the triangle built. So you've got the skills, the product knowledge, and the mindset, and that's like the golden formula.
Man, what is a 7 minute mindset? What's one little tiny insight how could you condense the book with a there it is.
There it is.
I actually we ran a podcast. And one of the guests last week or a couple of weeks ago, he's also a mindset coach, and he offered some advice which I thought was super powerful. Was for your mindset, what's one way to improve mindset? And the key for him, one of the keys, because again, there's no quick tips, there's no quick fix for this stuff, but one of the key insights was keeping the promises you make to yourself, following through on the things you say. Now, if I can follow through, if I say I'm going to do something, if I do that thing and if I do it consistently, I build up a track record within myself of, leadership, of accountability, and then I can stand in my integrity when I speak to people. And it really comes across. Obviously, your mindset will then, how you're feeling internally shows up externally, and so definitely in sales that can be transferred. What in the 7-minute mindset? What's one of the kind of key principles?
I'll give you so after 20 years of teaching personal development, NLP, hypnosis, I'll give you like the single most effective thing that I've found, right? And it builds on what you were just saying. What's the end result of all of the stuff you were just talking about? How do you know when it's worked? And when you are the kind of person who can handle the pressure, who's motivated, disciplined, all that stuff we just talked about, right? And the answer is, if you had to like prove it in a court, you'd need a transcript of your self-talk. What are you saying to yourself about yourself in your own head? That is the ultimate evidence that the change has been made. Because you can fake it till you make it and go, I'm fantastic and I'm showing up and I'm disciplined. And in your head going, I'm scared shitless. What am I doing here? Everyone's going to figure out I'm a fraud. The self-talk is the ultimate evidence. So if you fast forward to what would this ultimate version of me, the best possible closer in the world that I could ever be, what would I be saying to myself at that point in time? Just say that now. For the last probably 5 years, I have not said a negative word about myself to myself or out loud. When people ask me, and I'll actually take it from, an average level to an extreme level, because then I've got some built-in buffer in case I'm not feeling good. And you'll notice this from now on when we talk, Chris. You pick up the phone, you say, how are you, mate? My answer is always excellent, awesome, phenomenal, fantastic, spectacular. I never just say, yeah, pretty good. I'm like, everything is engineered around having this outstanding self-talk about who I am and what I'm capable of. So I think I'm the best closer in the world. Right? Is that true objectively? No, of course not. But subjectively, what do I gain from not believing that? Absolutely nothing. So the more powerful your self-talk, the more evidence you give yourself that this is who you are, and the better your results. So that's the key.
That's bloody incredible. Yeah, self-view. I need to read your book, man. I think you'll have to send me a copy.
I'll shoot you one in the mail.
You're a good man. Well, Nick, thanks again, mate, for joining and taking the time. And it's been super, super insightful for me and the crew. So, guys, hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got some value today. And let us know in the comments what's been the biggest takeaway. And we'll finish it here. Mate, enjoy Tassie. Hope the weather improves at some point in the next, it might be even the next 10 minutes. You might get some sun and then it might go back to rain, but I'm sure you'll get it at some point.
At some point, yep. Thanks, mate. Thanks for the invitation. Hope everyone found that valuable. And Chris is your man.
Thank you, mate. Appreciate it. Peace out, team.